Hey guys, it's Steve from Antics here. You're listening to Good Friends Better Enemies Podcast, only on the Counted Out 7 YouTube channel. Tyrone, let's go!
Well. We are back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an all-new episode of the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast. We're back. That's right. I'm not lying. My name is Tyrone, and as always, my co-host, my best friend, my favorite little man in the whole wide world, Jay. How the hell are you today, Big Papa?
I am doing very well, my friend. Very well indeed. And I got to tell you, having this layoff for this amount of time, it's been very interesting. Luckily, nothing of importance happened in the world of wrestling while we were off.
No, not a damn thing. Nothing at all. It's just business as usual at all the federations. Everybody's happy. Everybody's still got their same spots. Nobody's been brought back. Nobody's left. It's the exact same over and over again.
It sure is. It sure is. A fresh coat of paint here and there. There are a multitude of issues that we could talk about, all kidding aside. Plenty of news and notes to cover from the last 6 months or so. That's right, folks. We've been off for 6 months. Both of us are a little bit rusty, so you'll have to excuse us if we're not at our best behavior tonight. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a discussion about all sorts of different things. We're going to bounce around from topic to topic, I'm sure, as we always do, as we like to call them, brief sidebars. However, this evening, we are picking up where we left off in 1995, and we are going to be talking about In Your House 3, the triple header, rather. It was the main event of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and Big Daddy Cool Diesel, the Intercontinental Champion and World Wrestling Federation Champion, respectively, going up against those pesky tag team champions of Owen Hart and Yokozuna. Tyrone, I know you just recently watched this event for the first time. What were your impressions, pal?
You know, I got to say, 95 WWF, it's kind of your sweet spot. We know you're known as kind of the new generation guy. I'm not really the biggest fan of this era. I thought this show was actually all right. Like, there was a couple of things that I could have done without, but that's any wrestling show. I really don't like this main event stipulation. I've never been a big fan of the winner take all thing. It would have been a lot cooler if, I mean, spoiler alert, guys, this show was fucking almost 30 years ago. You better know what happened. It would have been a lot cooler if they had just had Yokozuna win the Intercontinental Championship or something like that. I don't think Shawn and Diesel needed the rub at all. Not to say Yoko or Owen did, but I kind of would have enjoyed it a little bit more had something like that happened.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but I have to be honest. I mean, at this point in Yoko's career, he wasn't the most agile. He had gotten quite heavy at this point. I don't know if him carrying a singles title would have been the most advantageous thing for the company. I mean, certainly with a workhorse like Shawn, we didn't know, obviously, going into this event that Shawn would be having to relinquish the title due to the incident in Syracuse, New York, not too long after this. So I think the plan was probably for him to carry the title for some duration of time before getting prepped to go into WrestleMania 12 and obviously go on to win the World Wrestling Federation Championship. But with that being said, I mean, certainly Owen Hart as an Intercontinental Champion would have been kind of neat. I don't see either Yoko or Owen winning the WWF Championship at this point. Yoko had already been the champion, and Owen probably wasn't going to be the one to carry the banner at this point in his career. So it was a really, really interesting pay-per-view. I really enjoyed as well, you know, seeing Waylon Mercy on the pay-per-view. That was a lot of fun. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. So I just want to touch on one thing. You and I kind of briefly spoke about this via text message and never really laid it out there. So let's do it right now just for shits and gigs. We know when we rebook in our universe, we have to obey who was with what company at the time. We're not bringing in Hulk Hogan to the WWF in 98 or anything like that. But one thing that I think we should honor is what you just said about not knowing that Shawn Michaels would have to relinquish the title not too much longer after this. We need to keep that out of our brains. We need to act like we don't know what's going to happen.
I
Agreed?
100% agree. I think that we need to just book based on what's in front of us. Obviously, we are booking off of the results of our rebooking of SummerSlam 1995, which we did actually last summer. So for us to go back now and book based off of what we had composed as our card back in the summer of 2021, and then bring it forward into this offering of In Your House 3, I think makes the most sense. And then, of course, we have no idea what's going to happen after this. I have no idea what's going to happen after this because I'm assuming I'll book In Your House 4, which will be from Winnipeg, Manitoba in October of 1995. And of course, based off the results of what happens tonight, I have no clue what you're doing. As always, you are a wild card, my friend. So I'm quite interested and a little bit apprehensive about what I'm in for today.
You know, I'm trying a new thing this time around, and that's let's not go so far off the normal script, and let's try and keep things in a so that the flow can keep happening. Like I did the crazy shit last year about putting Jerry Lawler in the Intercontinental title. Maybe that wasn't a great idea. I don't know. I thought you would have loved it, but you didn't seem to. So I'm going to try and just, obviously I'm going to do some random things here and there because that's what I do. But for the most part, I actually want to be able to tell a story year by year this time. You're not going to have something like Skip winning the King of the Ring. You're not going to have something like Doink the Clown winning the heavyweight championship. As much as I would love to see that, I know it just doesn't make sense.
Sometimes it's fun for us to go off the rails a little bit and have a little fun with the booking, and for sure some surprises here and there. Kurt Hennig winning the Royal Rumble in 2002 maybe wasn't the best and most judicious idea that you had ever, but at the same time, we made it work, man.
I will stand by that one till the day I die.
Maybe 90. I could see 90. 2002, it's a bit of a stretch for me.
Hey, man, how many times have we seen older superstars come back and just Sting main evented for the WWE Championship, like pretty much to the day of when we're recording a few years ago against Seth Rollins at 56 years old. So nothing. And Ric Flair fucking came back at a retirement recently and had a match. So nothing is off limits in pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I know how much you love those Legends returns. So I hope that you book more of them, sir.
Well, only time will tell, and I feel like we'll learn a little bit more about that maybe in the coming months as we head towards Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, maybe even Survivor Series. We both love 96. We got a legend return there of a name I don't even really want to talk about, but you know who I mean.
I do, and you know what? I really enjoy the stalker Barry Windham's work, so I don't know why you disparage the man.
Well, with that being said, should we just hop right into this so that you can see what kind of asinine off-the-wall booking I did for our very first episode of this season?
Absolutely. I'm so into it. And again, folks, I think that through the course of our conversations, Tyrone, you and I will probably delve into some of the more juicy news stories of the last 6 months or so. I don't know if necessarily we'll get into a lot of it today. We just want to get our feet back wet with the rebooking and of the show, but we'll definitely be discussing all sorts of things going on, whether it be, what's going on with World Wrestling Entertainment or what's going on with CM Punk. There's a whole lot of meat on that bone, to coin a phrase. That's for you, Tyler. But today, let's go back into our time machine. Let's go back to In Your House 3, September 24th, 1995. It took place in Saginaw, Michigan at the Saginaw Civic Center with an attendance of 5,146. Now, where we left off, last we spoke about 1995, folks.
Hold on. I'm going to cut you off for 1 sec right now because let's just take a second right now. When was the last time you heard of a televised event in Saginaw?
I'm sure they have a minor league hockey team.
I mean, a WWE or any kind of sports entertainment or sports worldwide national distributed show going on there. let alone, and like the fact that the arena only held 5,000 people blows my mind. Like, you and I have been to independent wrestling shows at a local Toronto arena in the East End that holds probably about 1,000 people, and we've essentially been to something like this, but it would have been the WWF.
Yeah, but you have to remember that back in these days as well, with the In Your House cards, that you got more in live attendance than you did what you'd see actually on the pay-per-view. So a lot of times, for example, you'd have The Undertaker. If he wasn't announced for the card on pay-per-view, he'd have a dark match as the main event, or vice versa with, say, Sean or Brad or what have you. So a lot of times they would have all the stars in attendance, but you wouldn't see them necessarily on the live pay-per-view broadcast. So for the show and for the live audience, it was a real good bang for your buck. But to your point, I mean, yeah, Saginaw, it's one of those markets you don't hear a whole lot about anymore. I mean, we have examples of that here in the local Toronto area. We don't see too many shows in Barrie taking place anymore, or Hamilton, the site of the first ever Royal Rumble.
Or even like I went to Monday Night Raw in Toronto in August, and Bailey even name dropped fucking Kingston and maybe Oshawa was the other one, or Belleville. But I was like, no, those names have not been mentioned on WWE television in decades.
They certainly have not. Although they used to do a whole lot of television tapings for Superstars and Challenge over in Brantford, Ontario. That's going way back to the late 80s and early 90s.
They sure did. That was where they would do their month worth of TV tapings. And our a friend of the family there, Jimmy Corderas, definitely was a big part of that. We can hear all about his stories.
Most certainly we can. That was one of our illustrious sidebars, ladies and gentlemen, talking about local geography in Ontario.
All right, move on. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Well,
let everyone know where we left off, where we're going right now.
All right. Well, I was just about to do that, pal. When we last spoke, it was regarding SummerSlam 1995. We had Owen Hart and Yokozuna go up against Savio Vega and the 1-2-3 Kid, with Owen Hart and Yokozuna retaining the tag team championships. We had The Undertaker versus Kama in a casket match, which essentially blew off the $1 Million Corporation feud with The Undertaker. Bret Hart went up against Lex Luger in a one-on-one match after Lex Luger had swerved Bret the night after the In Your House 2 pay-per-view. The two had won the tag team championships, and with a miscue during a match, Lex Luger actually turned on Bret after taking the pinfall loss, and Yoko and Owen would regain the tag team championships. We had Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in the ladder match too, which actually stayed the same as in canon. And then, of course, in our main event, we had Sid, who had won the championship due to enormous outside interference at the previous month's In Your House pay-per-view, going up against challenger Diesel in a steel cage match, with Diesel coming out on top as your World Wrestling Federation champion. Also important to note here, folks, that this is the first pay-per-view the WWF has offered since Nitro began in September of 1995. So there's a lot going on in the world of wrestling in the fall of 95. And so with all that being said, we're going to bring you to Saginaw, Michigan for the In Your House 3. Tyrone, take it away, pal.
Well, we're going to start things. Actually, Jay, do you want to tell us what the first match on the original card was? And then we'll go from there. I feel like that's what our format was before.
Most certainly. Did you do a match in the dark?
No, I did not do a match in the dark because, as you stated, all of the dark matches on In Your House events were actually with proper names. So I felt like I could potentially incorporate some of them into the card.
Well, that seems fair. And our opening contest on In Your House 3 is Savio Vega, the Caribbean sensation, going up against Waylon Mercy, if you know what I mean.
So, funny thing I noticed, I don't know if you caught this, I don't know when the last time you watched this event was, but Savio Vega was actually announced as being from the Bronx and not from Puerto Rico. I think
he always was during his run. He was always as from the Bronx in New York, yeah.
Well, there we go. I learned something new today. Well, our opening contest of In Your House 3 is Savio Vega going one-on-one with the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith.
Okay. All right. I'm intrigued. Now, going back to the King of the Ring, you had Savio Vega win the King of the Ring, did you not?
I did.
And you had Savio Vega then go on to be the number one contender, which was then changed because of the interference with Sid and Diesel in the main event of In Your House 2. Savio Vega's championship opportunity would take place the night after SummerSlam on Monday Night Raw. Do I have this correct?
Correct.
All right. So take it away.
So this match is based off of the British Bulldog getting pissed off that Savio Vega got the title match on the Monday night after SummerSlam. British Bulldog is going on a bit of a tear right now because after the Allied Powers broke up, he is now going into heel mode. So our match is a pretty hard-hitting one. It starts off with Vega going right after the Bulldog. We're getting a lot of fury kicks, punches, smacks, insecurities here and there, knocks the Bulldog off his feet. Once the Bulldog gets back up, he goes right after Savio Vega. We got all the power moves that the Bulldog does. We got a press slam. We got a couple of chops. We got those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kicks to the midsection that man does. Nobody has ever done them better. The match is just a brawl at this point. They end up brawling outside. The referee's 10 count happens. We have a double count out. I want to keep both of these guys strong because I feel like Savio Vega could still be an mid to upper card face, and you want to keep the Bulldog strong for reasons to be developed later. No? Don't like it?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I was having difficulty with my microphone.
That's okay.
So is it safe to assume then that during Savio's championship opportunity on the Raw after SummerSlam that the Bulldog came in and interfered in the match, causing a disqualification, and this cost Savio his championship opportunity?
Probably would have made a lot of sense if I had laid that out, wouldn't it have?
Well, I'm just putting two together here. You know what I like about this, which I find kind of interesting? It's a different wrinkle. I don't know if you did this on purpose or if it was a happy accident, but you very rarely see tag teams break up like the Allied Powers here, and both members of the team turn heel. You usually always have one of them who ends up being a babyface at some point, right? And then you have the inevitable feud between the two. In this scenario, we had Luger turn heel and Bulldog turn heel.
Right off the bat, yes, they normally are 1-1, but there are plenty of examples where both of them would eventually become heel very shortly after.
Oh, for sure there is. But just right off the hop like this, I thought it was interesting. It was almost like neither man cared about each other. They just wanted to go off and do their own thing. Both men had sights on the championship or on more prestigious adventures or more prestigious things in their sights. So they just didn't even bother to blow off whatever they had animosity towards each other. They just both were having their eyes on the brass ring, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think the Bulldog was, I don't want to say a wasted talent because he clearly wasn't, but that guy definitely should have held the title. There's no doubt in my mind. It would have been a great run.
I think so. I think maybe not in 95, even in 96, I could see it. 95, maybe. I definitely think that there was a missed opportunity not putting the championship on him for at least a short run. You could have done it from, say, a Survivor Series to a Rumble or something like that, a good 2-month run or something. But I definitely think he should have had the championship at one point. No doubt about it.
Give him the strap instead of Sid in 96. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I still like that Sid run in 96. You'll never be able to convince me otherwise, but I know where you come from and where you land on that, so I'll certainly respect your opinion for now.
Okay, that's fair.
Next match on the card is, speaking of Psycho Sid with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase going up against and defeating Henry O. Godwin, which I'm not sure if you know, Tyrone, that actually spells out hog.
What? Wow. Look at that. You're teaching me even more and more on this episode. God damn, I'm happy to be back. So I don't understand this match, this Sid and Henry Godwin match. Like, what? He slopped DiBiase, so now we're going to put him on a pay-per-view? This is just 95 booking at its finest. So my next match on In Your House 3 is Waylon Mercy going one-on-one with Doink the Clown.
Of course, you put face Doink on the card. I like this. Ray Apollo's Doink.
Yeah, it's Ray Apollo's Doink. Now, if you know anything about Doink the Clown, Ray Apollo's last appearance with the company as this character was in September of 1995. So I thought, instead of just putting him on an episode of Superstars or fucking Mania, whatever they were doing at the time, why not give Waylon Mercy a showcase on a pay-per-view? During the original card with Savio Vega and Waylon Mercy, they stressed the fact quite a bit that it was Waylon Mercy's first pay-per-view match, his first appearance on pay-per-view. So why not have him come out, shake Doink's hand. As he goes to shake Doink's hand, it's a fake hand. It's clown tricks. It's magic. It's wonderful. That does not sit well with good old Waylon Mercy. And he just proceeds to beat the living shit out of the clown. Like, I'm talking mercifully. Mercy beats him mercifully. It is just...
Merciless.
You know what I'm trying to say. Words aren't my strong suit, Jay. We know this. I'm more of a swear word, drink a beer kind of guy at times. But yeah, I just have Waylon Mercy literally beating the living hell out of Doink the Clown and getting a very, very strong win to showcase him. Because again, we can't predict the future. They seemed like they wanted to do something with good old Dan Spivey at this point. So why not just have him destroy somebody on a pay-per-view?
Okay. So my question to you here is, putting aside the fact that 95 WWF was Occupation Central, do you think that maybe having two gimmicks like Waylon Mercy and Doink go against each other might be too much gimmickry? Like, I'm thinking maybe like have him go up against a Bob Holly type may have been more effective. I don't know. What
with a race car driver, that's still super gimmicky.
Yeah, but he wasn't a clown.
No, but we're killing the clown. We're essentially killing the clown off of TV. This was Doink's last appearance.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, I'll give you that. So Doink, the party stops for Doink, and he is more or less out in the cold after this particular outing. And so where do you see Waylon Mercy going after this?
That's the thing. I like the gimmick. I really did. I'm a big fan of Cape Fear. I thought that this gimmick was fantastic. We saw it come back to a degree with Bray Wyatt in the early 2000s. We needed the Wyatt family, but with a different spin and a different angle on it. I thought Waylon Mercy could have had a decent career. Like, you got to look at the card at this point, or the roster at this point. You had Henry Godwin as a hog farmer. That is a super gimmicky thing. And he got over and ended up becoming a champion in WWE. You've got a pirate on the card. You've got you can't, I don't know where you go with him. I'm not going to lie. But I definitely think he could have been a strong contender for the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, I think his run was cut short due to his health. My understanding is that he's really bad knees, and he was just very, very, he had a really hard time taking bumps at this point in his career, Dan Spivey. So I think that his tenure was a lot shorter than they would have liked. My belief is that had he been a little bit more healthy, they would have done more with him, because he really wasn't around that long. I don't even think he made it to 96.
No, I don't think he did either. But like, you got to keep in mind, Dan Spivey had been an active competitor at this point for at least a decade, and he's a bigger guy. So I understand why his knees may have gone on him, especially working the rate that they worked then. It was just no days off.
100%. Plus, you got to remember those rings were still like concrete back then, working off the big man matches from the 80s where everything was reinforced. So for Spivey to take big time bumps, probably he didn't have that many bumps left in his bump card. So I'm glad we got to see the gimmick, but unfortunately it just didn't last very long.
It's also really crazy to think that at some point in his career, there was almost a chance where Dan Spivey walked down the aisle to Real American.
Yes, as the Golden Boy.
Yeah, well, was he the Golden Boy at that point? Because he replaced who? Barry Windham in the tag team, the American Express,
the US Express.
Yeah,
I think so. Was it okay? So was it Spivey and Rotunda?
I think he replaced Wyndham. So yeah, I think it was Spivey and Rotunda.
Yeah, it might have been.
And that theme song was originally intended for the U.S. Express. So we could have seen Waylon Mercy coming down to Real American.
Yes, we certainly could have. And he had the golden locks to make up for the persona that Hulk Hogan wouldn't have been showcasing at that point. I don't know. We'll see. It's very interesting to think about what could have been. Wasn't there another example of that just recently? Was it Robert Roode's theme music that was supposed to be originally for Shinsuke Nakamura?
So I just learned this one the other day, and yes, that is true.
It's such a bizarre theme to give Shinsuke Nakamura.
Well, it's also like
so would Shinsuke's theme then have gone to Bobby Roode? Because that would have made no sense.
No, I don't know what Bobby Roode would have got, but the other one that blows my mind is I found out that AJ Styles' theme song was originally for James Storm had he stayed with the company.
I have heard that as well. So a lot of those themes apparently were interchangeable for different talent at that point.
Well, we've also seen multiple cases of people using the same theme song and no mention, like Kurt Angle with the Patriot.
Yes, but I don't think anybody other than hardcore marks like us would even know who the Patriot is at this point. So
no, that's a valid point.
The next match on the card is the British Bulldog going up against Bam Bam Bigelow. Now, I'm assuming this match has changed unless you have the Bulldog Davey Boy Smith doing double duty here.
The next match on the card right now is Dean Douglas going one-on-one with Razor Ramon, which is a match on the original card, and I am keeping it the exact way that it is. I'm having Pardon me?
Go ahead.
I'm having Backlund come out with him. I'm having Dean Douglas cut that promo, and then I'm having Razor come out. They're having the same match. It's going to end the same way with the 1-2-3 Kid coming out, thinking he's helping Razor, ending up costing him the match, and then you get the shoving match and the fight between Kid and Ramon at the end. Because I honestly think we know what happened to Dean Douglas. We know the politics behind why the character ended. I loved that character. As a kid, I was 11 years old when this happened. 9 years old when this happened. I hated him. I fucking hated him because I hated teachers. I hated school. I hated all of that. So it was relatable to hate this man. As a grown man and knowing the absolute incredible work that Shane Douglas does, I love this character. I think it had legs, and I think that it got fucked over.
So did this whole angle after the SummerSlam ladder match still take place where Dean Douglas was critiquing the match and then Razor gave him a hard right, and that's kind of what built towards this?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense if you have that seed planted after the SummerSlam match, then for sure have this match. Do you still have Backlund as a part of it, or is he no longer?
I do, because I liked Backlund in it.
Yeah, the Backlund and Dean Douglas, so like one hand washes the other, right? They both kind of were sort of similar gimmicks in that sense that they were trying to educate the audience and be obnoxious and sort of pompous and things of that nature. So I definitely see the correlation between the two. I like the idea that you have Razor take the L to Dean Douglas. I mean, in our universe, maybe Dean Douglas has a bigger push in 95 going into 96. I don't know. Only time will tell, but I definitely think that I agree with you. There were some legs for the Dean Douglas character for sure.
Yeah, and then the backstage politics that we know of crushed it. I don't know. Obviously, I only know what I've heard on the internet and shoot interviews and everything like that. But it seems like there were some people that weren't big fans of good old Shane back in the day.
Indeed. I have heard the same thing.
But yeah, I thought it was actually a good match too, so I kept it.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad match at all. Dean Douglas was doing some interesting maneuvers that we hadn't seen a ton of in WWF at this point. I mean, he was doing some splashes, and I just watched the match back actually this afternoon. I saw Dean Douglas do a running jump to the second rope and then do a splash onto Razor, who was prone with his belly on the canvas, and he landed on his back. So he was doing some interesting maneuvers that we might have seen some of with, say, a Shawn or a 1-2-3 Kid, but we hadn't been overexposed to the high flying at this point. So Dean Douglas was definitely bringing something new to the table as well.
So I have a question now about kind of what we laid out earlier, where we have to obey who's in what federation, but we can't predict the future type thing. with Dean Douglas, if he didn't go right back to ECW, because I truly can't remember the timeline of when he left and when he showed up back there, can we keep him in the company until he shows up on ECW?
I don't see why not. In fact, I'm sure. Well, I don't know. I mean, you could potentially still use him when he's in ECW too, because they had that working relationship. But yeah, I think for the purposes of the booking, if you want to keep him in the company until we are seeing him fully on the ECW roster, then yeah, by all means, why not?
Cool, because if I can, I want to get Dean Douglas a WrestleMania match. I don't know what, but I just want him on the card.
Okay, well, we'll do some research and we'll figure out when he actually went to the land of the extreme, and we'll see what we can come up with.
Sounds good, pal. What do we have next as I crack a beer for the working man?
There you go, sir. The next match on the card is actually Dean Douglas with Bob Backlund going up against Razor Ramon. So what is in its stead?
So up next, we have Psycho Sid going one-on-one with the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow.
I had a feeling you were going to book this. I don't know why, but I think it makes sense, especially with Sid being in the corporation. You have Bam Bam being excommunicated from the corporation earlier in the year, right before the first In Your House in April. The first In Your House being in May, but being excommunicated in April, shortly after him taking the L to LT at WrestleMania 11. So, I mean, this is in canon, obviously. We haven't booked WrestleMania 11, but where do we go? What do you got?
Well, it's exactly what you said. He's been excommunicated from the $1 Million Corporation. So it's been DiBiase's absolute goal to just get Bam Bam out of the company, have him lose over and over again. He has gone through almost every corporation member. The only one he has beaten, and it's mainly on television shows and whatnot, is Nikolai Volkov. Everybody else, it's never a clean victory. It's never this. So we lead to Sid and Bam Bam. This match is exactly what you want it to be. A brawl. Bam Bam hits all his high-flying spots, the headbutt, the moonsault. Sid is there actually putting in a good effort. I give Sid an A for effort on this match. The finish comes when DiBiase is distracting Bam Bam as he's up on the top rope about to deliver a headbutt. He gets up on the apron. Bam Bam pushes him away, which leads to Sid able to kind of get him. So he suplexes him off the middle rope, and then Sid actually hits him with a power bomb for the 1-2-3. Your winner, Sid.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Bam Bam, again, we didn't know this during the booking of this match. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but Bam Bam in canon would be off to greener pastures shortly after this. So it would make sense for Sid to get the win. Also, I think just in general, it made sense for Sid to get the W here. He was really starting to gain some momentum, especially in our booking, considering he had won the championship at In Your House 2, now dropped it at SummerSlam 95. Why not give him a win on the next pay-per-view? I think it makes all the sense. And of course, who knows where we're going to go with Sid next, but having him on this card, I think, makes a ton of sense.
So we now go backstage. Doc Hendricks is following around Jim Cornette, trying hard to... Oh, sorry, we're still playing the Owen Hart's Not There gimmick. Should have let you know at the beginning, right?
Yes. So for those of you that aren't aware, folks, in the actual show In Your House 3 from Saginaw, Michigan, we had a bit of controversy as we went on the air because Owen Hart was MIA. We had no idea where he was, and he was nowhere to be found.
You know what? Let's just, when we get to the main event, we'll talk about all this because I realized that I don't want to give anything away.
Okay, that sounds good. So to be continued in terms of what happened to Owen Hart at In Your House 3.
Indeed, to be continued. Well, what was the next match on the card there, Sparky?
The next match on the card was Bret Hitman Hart going up and defeating Jean-Pierre Lafitte.
So this match is over a leather jacket and sunglasses being broken. That's essentially what the whole thing behind this match is, correct?
Indeed.
The next match on the card is Bret the Hitman Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte.
It was an excellent match.
It really was. Like, I'm just going to call him PCO because that's what we all know him as now, and I butcher French names a lot of the time. But goddamn, could he really? He can still go at his age, but he is a tremendously underrated talent from that era. And
Well,
you put him in the ring with somebody like Bret Hart, who, honest to God, like we all know, I've taken my shots at Bret Hart from time to time. He really could put on a good match with a broomstick. There's no denying that. But when you give him somebody who actually can work, like PCO, they tore the house down.
well, and so much so that even when Bret Hart released a DVD about 10 years ago called Bret Hart The Dungeon Collection, Best Matches of His Career, he put this match on that DVD.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic match. Like I'm not gonna lie, when I rewatch these events, if there's certain matches that I really don't care about, I skim through or I skip them. I thought about doing that, and then I was like, no, this is known as a good one. And I sat down and watched it, and I was just like, this is fucking great. I'm 10 years old again on my living room floor watching, cheering for Bret Hart. I was cheering for Bret Hart. I'm not going to lie. I wanted him to get his jacket back. I wanted those kids to have revenge over their sunglasses being broken. Nobody wants a pirate when you, actually, that's a lie. Every kid wants to be a pirate, but nobody wanted a real pirate around them. They don't want their booty stolen.
Yeah, I mean, well, just look at the way the match started. Bret does a tope through the ropes to get the match started and lands right on Lafitte. In fact, that spot was featured in the opening of Monday Night Raw for the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was an amazing way to start the match even. And I love the fact that Bret came in through the door instead of the garage.
Right? I wanted to talk about that because that only happened one other time on this event, and it's just the dumbest part of the pay-per-view, so I don't even... It's when Alundra Blaze comes out to shell some merchandise, because that's what they were doing with her in 95. No wonder she left the company.
Yeah, and that's what I think about the WWF Women's Championship belt.
Yeah, and I get it at that point. She was being wasted, but that's a sidebar that we could go down for a while, but let's talk about the Pirate. The fact that his fucking move was called the Cannonball, and it was just essentially a swanton, was it not?
More or less, yeah. I mean, but again, that's the beauty of the match, is talking about these two performers. You alluded to it earlier. Jean-Pierre Lafitte, PCO can go. Bret can obviously go. But it's also the fact that they're completely different types of wrestlers. Like Jean-Pierre Lafitte was more of a brute, but he was so agile.
And he was half fucking blind.
Yes.
This is a blind man in one eye doing everything that he did.
110%. I can't give him enough credit. He's still going to this day, and the two of them really put on a clinic. I think they might have had a rematch on Raw at one point in a couple of weeks following this, but yeah, definitely it was an absolute 5-star match, and one that I think stole the show without question.
Oh, 100%. It was the match of the night, and that's why I'm not changing a damn thing.
And nor should you. I wouldn't either.
All right, well, time to move on to greener pastures.
All right, well, the next match on the card is the triple header match.
So, you and I like to believe in a thing called ebbs and flows, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you really want to have the main event go on after such a hard-hitting, technical, wonderful masterpiece that they put on?
Oh, I think that you should definitely have a let me up match.
So the next match on the card is Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Fatu.
Okay, you took the dark match and put it in its place here right before the main.
Yeah, and I have no idea who won the dark match at all. This match I hated this Fatu gimmick, by the way. Can I just state that? He was just this cartoonish, I mean, granted it was the mid-90s where everybody was wearing the bright colors, but I feel like always, the WWF was about 2 years too late with everything. So he's this get off the street, say no to drugs, on the street warrior. Is that what he was? The street warrior or something like that?
I just remember his leather jacket said, "It's time to make a difference."
That was it. Make a difference. But I figured, why not have him go up against the Blue Blood, Hunter Hearst Helmsley? He's new to the company. The match was a dark match anyway. There's really not much to talk about here. It's kind of the popcorn match. It's the, all right, you just had this hell of a great one. Let's put this in its place before we bring you to the main event. Your winner is going to be Hunter Hearst Helmsley with a pedigree. He eats the rub at this point.
Yeah. I can't see this going longer than like 6 minutes anyway.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it's a good way to get both guys on the card as well. You want to get fought to a pay-per-view payday. Hunter Hearst Helmsley could obviously use the exposure as a fairly new character of the company. He had just defeated Bob Holly at the SummerSlam pay-per-view the month previous. So, yeah, I'm all for this.
I definitely had a different idea going into this one, but I chose not to do it. I was originally going to debut Goldust at this one, but I thought it worked better. They teased it. They gave promos saying that he would debut at the next In Your House. And I'm like, all right, I don't want to fuck with this too much. I don't want to bring him in too early. I want to have his debut mean something. That is a goddamn hint to you, so remember that.
Yeah, I don't think that it would have been necessary on this particular card. I think there was enough going on this card that you didn't need it.
Well, especially if I'm trying to get Waylon Mercy over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're gonna have Waylon Mercy do his first pay-per-view match here, have his first outing on pay-per-view, then I think that having one new face is enough. And you already have a couple of new faces. Like Dean Douglas wasn't around all that much. Jean-Pierre Lafitte was really a very established character on television. So
same with Triple H.
Yeah, so you've got enough fresh faces on this card. I think you can save. Plus, I think that you don't want to shoehorn the Goldust debut in either. You want to make some pomp and circumstance out of it. You want to take your time, give the announcers time to really put him over before he gets in the ring. So you want to give him a good, 5-minute entrance as well. So I think it makes sense to save it for a card that's maybe a little bit less top heavy.
Yep, totally makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess the next and final match on the card, I would assume, is our triple header match, which would be the tag team championships up for grabs, as well as the Intercontinental and WWF championships up for grabs. So the way this works, folks, is that if one of the singles competitors, be it Shawn, the IC, or Diesel, the WWF champion, were to take a pin, whomever pinned them on the opposite team would become the singles champion. So if you have Yokozuna, who pins Shawn Michaels, Yokozuna is your new Intercontinental champion, along with one half of the tag team champions. Obviously, vice versa. If Diesel or Shawn Michaels were to pin one of their opponents, they would become then the tag team champions, along with their own singles title, which they already hold. So, going back to the story of the evening was that Owen Hart was MIA, nowhere to be found. And throughout the course of the evening, we saw Doc Hendricks following around and providing updates to Jim Cornette's search for a replacement for Owen Hart. Now, in canon, we got the British Bulldog, but I'm very curious to see how you've laid this match out, my friend. Have I done the explanation justice?
Absolutely. So, throughout the night, you're seeing Doc Hendricks follow Jim Cornette around. He's going to different people, trying to make a pitch, hearing them out, wondering who's going to make sense. You see him talk to King Mabel. You see him talk to Waylon Mercy. He's like, oh, this newcomer, maybe he's got something in it. Finally, they decide on somebody. They go up and they approach Jean-Pierre Lafitte. And JP, his whole thing is that, yes, he came up a little short against Owen's brother, but he knows that he can take Owen's place and retain those tag team championship. Jim Cornette is sold on this. So as the announcements are about to be made, Jean-Pierre Lafitte comes out. All of a sudden, he is attacked from behind by the British Bulldog. The British Bulldog then looks at Jim Cornette and goes, you can't even trust family anymore? Owen's my brother-in-law. I'm in this match now. And Jim Cornette just looks elated. He doesn't know why he didn't think of this. So the match stays the same. It is Diesel and Shawn Michaels going up against Davey Boy Smith and Yokozuna with the exact same finish of Owen being pinned, but not technically being in the match. I did this.
The fake out here you did with Jean-Pierre Lafitte.
I did the fake out with Jean-Pierre Lafitte. I'm not mad at it.
I'm not mad at it either. I was going to groan about the fact you're going to have Yoko, Jean-Pierre Lafitte as a tag team, but since you corrected it with the Bulldog, I'm all for it.
I did that because I hated the fact that they actually announced it earlier in the show who the partner was going to be. I would have rather had a surprise. I love surprises when they're done right. I thought this would have added a little bit more to it. And I know you, Jay, your favorite three-man group pretty much of all time is Camp Cornette. I'm not going to take that away from you.
No, I think it's good. I mean, looking at this booking, I wasn't sure what you were going to do with this. I really wasn't.
I
wasn't sure if you're going to have the Bulldog take the title here. You're going to have Yoko take the title. I know that you hate Diesel as champion.
But it all made sense for the time. And I hate this fucking main event. I hate this stipulation. But I couldn't get out of it without dropping a title of some sort or switching around so many different working components. Like, they had already been started to call themselves the two dudes with attitudes. It made sense. Everybody knows that they have this connection. Keep them together. They're going to get stripped of the titles anyway the next night on Raw because of the same stipulation as to why they couldn't keep them. Then we can potentially start fresh. Like, I don't want to start building new, big championship potential feuds on an In Your House. I don't think they were at that point yet.
I agree with you. I mean, whether or not Diesel and Shawn get stripped of the tag team titles will be dependent on whomever is booking the next In Your House in October of 95, which would be In Your House 4 from Winnipeg. We're going to have to get to that event from this one. So we'll see whomever books it, whether or not they hold on to the tag titles or not. But I completely agree with you. I mean, for the purposes of this particular night, I think A, you're sending the crowd home happy. B, if you're watching on pay-per-view, let's face it, the majority of the crowd, the majority of the audience wanted to see Shawn and Diesel win the tag titles again. So it makes sense. I definitely don't think that we need these two guys holding all the titles going into the next month. So it'll be interesting to see who books what. But I really don't think you could have booked this in another way that would have made a lot of logical sense. The other thing, too, is if you booked it to have one of these other competitors, say Bulldog or Yoko, win one of the singles titles, then you'd have to try to book yourself out of a paper bag as well. So I feel like for the purposes of this particular card, this makes sense to keep the main event as is.
Yeah, like I said, I almost hate myself for having to do it, but there was nothing else I was going to do. I'm not going to put a title on, like you said, put a singles title on Yokozuna, who is not very mobile at the time. When I saw the tease of Mabel potentially being his partner, nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted to see that whatsoever, which made me almost kind of want to do it, but I didn't. And then it just makes sense to keep it, because then you have the formation of Camp Cornette almost officially there, and we can get the ball rolling into 96, into Vader coming into the company, all the fun shit that we are looking forward to.
Yeah, true enough. And I mean, we also have to look forward to the next month's In Your House pay-per-view, October of 95. We did have that scintillating match of Yokozuna versus King Mabel.
Yeah, I remember that. So weirdly enough, I've seen that In Your House a few times, the Great White North one. I don't know if it's because it's Canadian and me being a mother Canucker over here, but I have stupidly seen that one so many times, and I hate to tell you how many times I've watched Yoko versus Mabel, mainly because it's just a train wreck.
Yeah, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. That whole pay-per-view is awful. In fact, I remember hearing a story about Vince, who was on commentary for the match. Apparently, obviously, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard through stories that once the pay-per-view went dark for the live audience on pay-per-view, and then they were just in the arena, apparently Vince threw down his headset and said, like, that was just horrible. And it was one of the worst pay-per-views that they ever did put on, like, other than the Goldust debut, which even that could have been done a little bit better. I think you could have chosen a different opponent and what have you. But no, this was a difficult time for the company. The night is darkest before the dawn. So we definitely had some dark times here. I think you booked a really, really solid pay-per-view, all things considered, with it being gimmick central and occupational gimmick central. And you've left a lot to work with for the next month's pay-per-view as well. So I do appreciate that. I I would have lost it if you had Jean-Pierre Lafitte as a tag team champion with Yokozuna. But no, man, I think you did good for our first show back in 6 months.
You know, my thing back in the day was always telling you or somebody else to grow up. And guess what, Jay? I'm telling myself to grow up right now and actually make things make sense and not go too far off the beat. We're still going to get weird at some points. Don't get me wrong. There's still going to be a Texas death match coming up soon. But we're going to keep things at a nice pace because I don't want you and I to yell at each other every episode. I want it to be when it happens. Oh boy, is it not deserved?
Oh, absolutely. We have some barn burners ahead of us now that we're back on the rails. I think that we have a lot of fun stuff coming up on tap. Now, speaking of that, Tyrone, you and I have had a conversation in regards to how we're going to address the rest of the year 2022 in terms of our shows coming up. And I think we might want to let our listening audience know exactly what we're planning to do here. So would you like to take the honors or shall I?
Why don't we do it together?
All right. Well, what we've devised here is we would like to catch up with what we missed on our time off. So we like to finish the year 1997. We'd like to finish WCW 1999. We'd like to finish a lot of these years that were kind of left in flux because we took our sabbatical.
We took a little sabbatical, and essentially what Jay is saying is we always like to time our shows with events that are going now we're doing a September one. We're not going to be doing that necessarily for the rest of the year. You could get an event from July being dropped in November. We just want to get through these years and get caught up so that come January, we are able to start fresh years and go all the way through.
That's right. We're going to go coast to coast. And so we're going to try to tie up 1997 as best we can. We have a few events still to do there. We have the year 2002. Tyler from the Counted Out 7 podcast has graciously offered to finish up 1993 for us, as he was the one to book the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. So I believe we have some King of the Ring on tap, as well as some other events coming up. We have some really exciting stuff. I can't wait to continue on the story with a couple of threads that we started earlier in the year. So with that being said, Tyrone, what do I have next on tap? What am I doing next week?
Well, we're going back to 97, my friend. We're going to give you In Your House, Revenge of the Taker.
Ooh. Now, we did discuss this before we went on our sabbatical, and I have to say that this is one of my top 5 pay-per-views of all time. I absolutely love this pay-per-view. It's a sentimental journey for me. I can't wait to go back and look at it, and it's going to be interesting to book based off of your booking of WrestleMania 13, which, as you said, had Jerry the King Lawler coming out as your Intercontinental Champion. And if I'm not mistaken, our main event of The Undertaker versus Mankind in a steel cage match, which saw the Dead Man retain the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Vader's stuck in Kuwait. Who's going to challenge for the title? I have no idea.
Flash Funk. Let's go crazy right off the bat and say Flash Funk.
Flash Funk versus The Undertaker for the World Wrestling Federation Championship?
In a Texas death match.
Sounds good. I like it. Maybe could we have something on a pole? Could we put a stip on a pole? Maybe like a pimp on a pole.
Funkettes on one pole, Paul Bearer on the other.
That's got to be a sturdy pole.
Oh wait, no, Paul Bearer wasn't even with him at this point, so that makes no sense. Just the Funkettes. Why not? I don't know.
How about a hat versus hat match? Because the Undertaker
I just
a cowboy hat at this point.
Flash Funk's cowboy hat versus the Undertaker's dead man hat. You literally took the thought right out of my brain.
I like that a lot. I think cowboy. It'd be like a flag match, but with hats.
I just want to see the Undertaker in that feathered, beautiful, bejeweled cowboy hat.
I am fairly certain that after a couple of nights worth of Jack Daniels imbibement, that the Undertaker probably popped that on his head at some point over a European tour.
I mean, there's no photographic evidence as of right now, so if anybody out there has that, drop it.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally returned after our long hiatus. Big Mac Grand has come and gone for another season. The Dave's Double still remains. I enjoy it. No onions.
Oh, you want to talk fast food sandwiches? Wendy's has a new spicy Baconator that, I'm not going to lie, has tingled my taste buds a little bit.
Have you tried the Baconator breakfast sandwich?
I have. I got to say, I'm a big fan of Wendy's breakfast. I'm not going to lie. It's,
Yeah.
I shouldn't love a Frosticino as much as I do, but fuck, you don't know you need those things until they're in your life.
100%. And then, so the best time to have it, if you're going to imbibe in a Wendy's Baconator egg sandwich, is to eat it at 11 and be back in bed by 11:30.
I'd say 11:40 because you're probably going to want to hit the toilet at 11:30.
Especially if you get the biggie size one.
Exactamundo, my buddy.
I saw what you did there. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to be back in your homes and wherever you listen to this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very, very thankful to be back on the Counted Out 7 umbrella. Tyler and Mike have graciously brought us back for another run. Hiatuses are behind us, and we intend to be here weekly for your viewing and listening pleasure. Tyrone, where can our fans and the listening audience find us on social media?
Not gonna lie, I actually had to look that up earlier, but on Twitter at good_enemies, on Facebook at the Good Friends Better Enemies podcast, and on Instagram at good_enemies. For all things Good Friends Better Enemies and Counted Out 7, you hit countedout7.com. Make sure you hit prowrestlingtees.com/countedout7 to get yourself one of those incredible shirts that Mike and Tyler have ready for you.
They are nifty indeed. And for myself, for Tyrone, for the Baconator breakfast sandwich, for In Your House 3, Revenge of the Taker, Flash Funk's Pimp Hat, and Tyrone and myself being back in the saddle, you've been listening to the Good Friends, Better Enemies podcast.
Bye.